Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason. Speaking here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And I'm doing another video on my top 100 favorite albums of all time. Kind of my second time I'm doing this list. And I already covered first 30 or so, because now I'm going from 70 through 61 on my list. So covering 10 albums here. I already did 100 through 71. So yeah, I covered my first or bottom 30 on the list. Now we're going to get to the next 10. Yeah, excited to get to another talking about my favorite albums. A lot of new albums on my list that weren't on my last list. In fact, most of almost every album on this side wasn't on my list last time. So we got a lot of new stuff. I'm pretty sure all these albums are new. I didn't have any of these 10 albums on my last list of 100 favorite albums. So it's cool to be able to discover some new albums and talk about them and how I fall in love with these new albums that I've gotten to anyway. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. I just wanted to point out or shout out to people, Scott from SoundLab Studios and Nick from Townsend 505. They are also doing 100 favorite albums on their channels as well, which is a lot of fun to get through and see what they have on their list and compare it to what I have on my list. Definitely check out those two channels and see what they have, because the three of us are really good friends. We are in the same kind of group, and we do a lot of collaborations together. And I'm hoping after we get through all our 100 that I can do some kind of collaboration with Nick and Scott and kind of compare our lists. Anyways, that's a hope. But yeah, looking at my list today, definitely covering a lot of 80s. It's definitely the most 80s I've had so far on my list. And I don't think I had a lot of 80s albums on my list last time. So definitely added some more 80s on here. And it's definitely Phil Collins heavy. I definitely have a lot of Phil Collins represented here. So it'd be fun to see what that is here on my 100 favorite list. So I hope you enjoy this here on Jason the Old Millennial. Hello everybody, hope everybody's having a good week and having, it's now Thursday night, late Thursday night. It's been a crazy week for me kind of in some senses. I just worked a lot this week. I picked up an extra shift actually this Saturday in fact, and I'm working all weekend. I worked all last weekend, I'm working all this weekend, plus I worked the last 2 days. I don't know, I just haven't had much time in between off. It feels like I've just been loaded a lot with work. And so I'm just really physically tired lately. Hadn't had a lot of time to do a lot of videos. Did do a live stream Monday with History of Rock and Roll Part 3 with Briar from Briar's Music Showcase and Nick from Townsend 505. A lot of fun doing those videos. I hope you check those out, because I put a lot of time and effort kind of doing the research on those videos, and have a blast doing them with two good friends of mine. But yeah, and I wasn't planning on doing this today, but like I said, Nick is already down to, I think, into the 60s now. I think he's covered 40 albums already on his list, and Scott is down to his top 50. So I'm getting kind of behind them too. So I thought, well, I better do another 10 so don't get too behind. I'm kind of hoping the three of us kind of end our lists at the similar times. Not the same time, but hopefully we'll be similar. So then, like I said, we can do a video together after we do our list. But anyways, getting all through that, let's get to my list today. And we're starting with number 70 on my list. And this is, again, a new album that wasn't on my last list. And it's another Queen's album, that is The Works. One of probably my favorite 80s album from the band. This came out in 1984, so a year after I was born, in fact. This is their 11th studio album, so obviously they're already well-known, already considered one of the greatest bands probably of all time, rock bands here, and we're getting to their 80s stuff. I don't know how many 80s they've had at this point, but anyways. But yeah, Works is an album I really wasn't big on until the last year or so, when I went through I don't know if that was a year ago or 2 years ago, I went through the whole Queen discography and did a deep dive on Queen, which is a band I loved, but never really went through their albums. And my friend Briar from Briar's Music Showcase is a huge Queen fan. And so I knew I had to get through them at some point so I can talk to Briar about Queen more. Nick's also and Scott, and they're all big fans of Queen. But yeah, definitely a band I really love and appreciate even more. In fact, they have 6 albums on my list. I think what did I mention? I mentioned A Kind of Magic already, was number 6. So this was my 5th favorite Queen's album here. And a lot of people say, oh, Queen's, they only have singles. They don't have great albums. And I'm like, no, they have great albums. I have 6 of them on my top 100, all 9.5 and above. I mean, this is another 9.5 out of 10 album. These are all the albums on my list today are 9.5. So I mean, they're almost perfect albums in my opinion. But yeah, Works is a really good rock album. Some really great rock stuff here, as usual. You have like 2 big hits on here that really carry the album, I suppose. And like, I don't know how big of an album this was when it came out. I feel like, I want to say it's like maybe an underrated album because, like I said, it was an album that was on my radar, and then now it's at number 70. I mean, it really jumped up for me. The more I listen to it, the more I'm like, wow, this is just an amazing album that I don't think people talk about enough about. The big song, though, is Radio Gaga, of course, is maybe the big song on here that made very famous at Live Aid later. I don't know when that was. That was maybe the next year or so when they did Live Aid, and it might have been like the first song or something like that they came out with, and it's one of the most amazing videos, watching Freddie Mercury singing Radio Gaga at Live Aid, you know, with the big crowd really into the song and going, all we hear is Radio Goo Goo, Radio Gaga, and he's like lifting his fist in the air, if I remember right, and the crowd's just really into it. Yeah, really great song, super catchy. Of course, big hit for them. The other one is I Want to Break Free. It's another really great song on this album. I would say, well, yeah, I Want to Break Free is one of my favorite on the album for sure. But yeah, another great vocal work by Freddie and very catchy. And like I said, you probably would know this song, pretty good radio hit. You know, the I want to break free. I want to break free. Like, oh, great stuff. Great guitar work and kind of a cool sound on the guitar on this one. Kind of controversial music video where they're all dressed in drag, of course. Kind of makes it even more infamous, but really great song. Outside that, there's also some, I guess, again, some really good rock songs on this album, even some good ballads as well. But Tear It Up, I think is open, or no, Radio Gaga might be the opener. Tear It Up, though, I think the second song, really good rock song, very underrated, kind of deep cut. A Hammer to Fall, another amazing rock song, one of my favorite on the album and favorite of theirs. Yeah, great stuff there. It's a Hard Life. It's not as hard rocking, but really good stuff. Great vocal work from Freddie Mercury. And Is This the World We Create? I think the closer, and it's more of a ballad. I'd say it's my favorite song on the album probably because it's a really great like ballad. Great vocal work from Freddie, and it seems definitely a deeper type of song, very emotional type of song for Freddie. Yeah, I think a really great deep cut as well. But yeah, The Works, really good underrated album by Queen, and made it into my top 100 here at number 70, The Works. 69, we're going to have my one and only George Harrison album, and that is Cloud 9. Cloud 9 made it here at 69, kind of worked out that way, didn't mean to, but it came out in 1987, so we got another 80s album, and this is also George's 11th studio album. So funny enough, I have 2 albums that are the 11th album of these 2 careers, so I mean, it's definitely way into their career. They're definitely, obviously, super established, have a lot of big hits. Of course, George obviously was huge in the 60s with the Beatles, and then now he went through 70s. Now we're kind of in the late 80s. In fact, this is his second to last album, and this is really his last album that he made before he passed away. So it's kind of the last album that he, did while he was alive. For some reason, he kind of quit doing music, and then, of course, unfortunately, like, 13, 14 years later, he would pass away from cancer, I believe. Anyway, so yeah, and it's funny, you might think, what, All Things Must Pass isn't your favorite George Harrison album? No, it's not. Like, I'm not a huge fan of George Harrison's work, to be honest, his solo work. And All Things Must Pass is a solid album. It's technically like a triple album, but even as a double album, again, I might need to listen to the album more, but like last time I listened to it, I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. I just wish it wasn't a double album. It just feels a little too long of an album. But there's some really great songs on that album. So I totally get why people would say that's not only George Harrison's best album, but the best. A lot of people say that's the best solo Beatle album, which I totally disagree with. I have so many solo Beatle albums on my list. I would say I probably have 9 or 10 Beatles solo albums on my list that I think are way better than All Things Must Pass. And that's just me. That's my opinion. Most people love the album. That's fine. In fact, I've been listening to George Harrison albums. I haven't heard all of his albums, but I listened to his first like 4 or 5 albums. And like, I'm not a big fan of George Harrison's sound. I don't know why. I'm not really getting into the albums as much. I kind of jumped ahead and did Cloud 9 because I want to say Nick maybe put this album on our 50 other essential albums that we did. Me, Nick, and Briar kind of put together. We've been doing these 50 essential albums per decade. And then we did kind of a bonus episode where we just picked 50 albums that we hadn't talked about that we thought should be on the essential list. And I believe Nick put this on the list. So I was like, oh, Nick's a pretty big fan of George Harrison. And so he put Cloud 9 on there. So I was like, well, I better listen to Cloud 9 since it's now on our essential albums list. And man, I really kind of blew me away. I was so surprised at how much I enjoyed this because I was not, like I said, not really liking George Harrison stuff. And then I heard this and I'm like, oh, now this is good George Harrison. Why can't I get more of this George Harrison? And then it's like his last album almost. His last album was a posthumous album after he died. They put an album together, but so it's like the last album put together his life and then he kind of quit. So I'm like, what the heck, George? You're like just now getting really good for me and now you're quitting. Yeah, I don't know why this album really, I think, and I have to wonder if it's Jeff Lynne. Jeff Lynne produced the album, and Jeff Lynne was doing some really incredible job producing albums. I mean, he produced this one. He'd also produce Tom Petty's I think debut album as well, and a lot of I think all Tom Petty's albums. And that Tom Petty's solo debut album, really good album as well. And so, and then he was in Traveling Wilburys around this time as well. And Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 is another really solid album. I really like that album as well. And George Harrison put some really good songs on that album as well. So I'm like, wow, George Harrison and Jeff Lynne are just really killing it here in the late 80s into the early 90s. It feels like this is like peak period for George, Harrison. Unfortunately, it comes kind of towards the end of his music career. But yeah, Cloud 9, if you haven't heard that album, I have to highly recommend. All you hear about is All Things Must Pass, definitely an album you have to listen to because it's definitely his most famous. But Cloud 9 is definitely got to be like the next album you got to listen to. It's got a lot of great rock pop hits, I would say. There's some fast-paced rock songs on here and maybe some couple ballads. I don't know. Overall, I think it's just George's best work as far as guitar work and music arranger, singer. I think he sounds really good on this album. I love the guitar playing. Again, it seems to be influenced by Jeff Lynne probably. I got the feeling because it definitely has a Jeff Lynne type feel to it, which I like. I don't know, because I just love the sound of the guitar. It just sounds great on this album. And yeah, just a lot of nice, catchy pop songs and rock songs and some ballads and stuff here. Also a great collection of players on here. I was looking at his Wikipedia, and he had some really great Hall of Famers on here. No surprise, including, if I can, now I'm trying to remember, including like Eric Clapton, Elton John played on some songs here. Of course, Ringo's always willing to play on George Harrison albums. Yeah, Ringo. You got Gary Wright, I believe his name is, played on some songs on the album, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but yeah, Jeff Lynne, of course. Yeah, played on some of the songs. So I mean, just all rock and roll Hall of Famers. What a great group to make an album with, and maybe that's why it's so good. Just a great, support of all these great musicians. But anyways, the only song that's maybe a hit on here, I want to say, is Got My Mindset on You. Definitely, I feel like it was a radio hit. Really great song off here. I think it's a cover, but man, really great cover, if I remember right. But yeah, it's very catchy, very upbeat, pop, catchy song. Got my mindset on you. got my mind set on you. Yeah, really good chorus, but even like, I got money, I got a lot of money, or something like that. Yeah, really great song for George here. The only other song that might be somewhat well known, I think it was pretty famous for him, was When We Was Fab. Another really great song off here. Obviously, talking about being part of the Beatles, which is kind of cool. It's because George was very bitter after the Beatles. I think because he didn't get to write as many songs, or his songs were kind of put in the back burner because Lynn McCartney was such a big writing team. And he felt like, I think he was second class in the band sometimes. So I always felt like there's some bitterness there. So it was cool that we got a song from George here, kind of much later. I mean, you're talking about 17 years after they were broken up. He's being able to write a song about talking about his time with the Beatles, because Fab being part of the Fab Four, you know. But yeah, kind of a cool, you know, reminiscing song, of nostalgia song of the past. You know, and catchy though, of course. When we was fab, bum 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 bum, fab, bum 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 bum. Like, I really like the piano on there, and the whole chorus about being fab. But yeah, another really nice song that I think is fairly well known. But then a lot of great deep cuts here. I mean, I think That's What It Takes, I believe, was opener. Really good, catchy rock song. Just for Today was really good. Someplace Else was very beautiful. Like, I really liked that. It was like more of a softer, like almost ballad type song. Really beautiful song. Loved it. Breath Away from Heaven, another kind of more softer song. And then my favorite song is called This Is Love. Actually, was my favorite song on the album, which is another just great kind of maybe soft rock song with a great chorus. Very, you know, deep cut song, but really great. But overall, Cloud 9, very underrated album. I feel like my favorite, George Harrison, and it's already here at number 69 on my list. All right, number 68 is definitely a big hit album. This is my favorite Elton John album, and that is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road here at number 68. Came out in 73. This is his 7th studio album. Again, love Elton John. You know, I only have 2 of his albums on my top 100. He has a bunch of albums I really like that I just barely missed out, unfortunately, but this definitely has to be in here. This is such a masterpiece album. It's a double album. And I would say there's only 16 songs, but there's like the first song is very long. So it kind of makes it a double album. I would say if you give me like the top 10 songs on this album, it's definitely a 10 out of 10 album. But because it's a little bit longer and there's some songs I wasn't a big fan of, it gets to 9.5. It still has, man, it has 4 huge hits. That's what's so crazy about this album. It's like, wow, he put most albums I'm listening to, I'm like, there might be 1 or 2 like big hits on them, and then some good deep cuts. This one has 4 major Elton John hits. I mean, that's why it has to be up this high on my list, plus a bunch of good deep cuts as well. But talking about the great hits on here, obviously the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the title song, amazing. One of my, I mean, again, there's probably 2 songs on here that are definitely in my top 10 favorite Elton John songs, and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is one of those that's in my top 10. I mean, just a beautiful piano kind of ballad type song, great vocals. I mean, he had some incredible high notes on this album, on the song, Elton John, and you know, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, something house, bum 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 bum. Just beautiful, very catchy, really great melody there. Yeah, one of his best. Candle in the Wind, obviously, huge hit for him, especially after Princess Di passed away and he did one for her. But this was, of course, a great homage to Marilyn Monroe, which is really cool because it uses her real name, Norma Jean. You know, goodbye, Norma Jean, even though I didn't know. Anyway, so it's a great kind of song about Marilyn Monroe, who passed away when, you know, Elton John, and he says, you know, I was just a kid, but your candle burned out long ago, before your legend ever did, or something like that. Saying like she died very young, unfortunately, I believe from drug overdose or maybe suicide, if I'm right. You know, she was huge in the 50s and then died in like 61, I believe, you know, so I can't, she's probably still in her 20s. I mean, just very tragic. Was a huge star, big sex symbol, the biggest sex symbol of the 50s for sure. And then she, you know, unfortunately had so much issues in her life that happened so young. And so it's really cool. Elton John wrote the song about her, and it's a beautiful song, piano ballad. and lyrically amazing. Of course, Benny Taupin probably wrote the song. He's the lyricist, but yeah, I love the lyrics of this. Talking about all the tragic that she had in her life. And like I said, she's always live on is one of the great legends. Anyway, so yeah, it's a really cool song. Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. What did I say? Forget what I said there. Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. Another really great upbeat rock song. Again, this album's so cool because it has some really upbeat rock songs. It's kind of a rock album in some points. And then you got these amazing ballads, and you got some amazing catchy pop tunes. I mean, he does it all on this album. And Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting is one of his best rock songs. Very catchy. My favorite song on the album, though, is Benny and the Jets. And again, it's like a top 5 Elton John. I love Benny and the Jets is one of the songs I like that song. And now I'm like, I love that song. Just love the overall, again, it's very upbeat. Almost has like a retro rock type sound to it. But I love that piano, though. Bum, 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 bum. Like how he does those high notes on the piano. But I love the way he plays that piano on this song. And he goes, ba-ba-ba-ba, Benny and the Jets. He does that stutter. And again, some great high notes as well. So catchy, but man, that piano is so good. Bum, 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 bum. I love that part of the song. But yeah, great song, Benny and the Jets. So yeah, those 4 huge hits. Now he's got some really good, like I said, deep cuts here as well, which I always enjoy going to and going, wow, I forgot about this song. But Song Has No Title. Grace Hill is probably my favorite discovery on the album. I love that song. Really nice, another nice catchy pop song. I've seen that movie too, really good as well. And then Harmony, I think maybe the closer of the album, another really good ballad as well. Yeah, really great album. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road here at number 68 on my list. All right, I said Phil Collins is going to be on this list. He's going to be well represented here. And we got the first one I'm going to talk about, which is No Jacket Required by Phil Collins. Came out in 1985, another 80s classic. This is his third studio album, or solo album, I should say, at this time. And it's definitely his biggest album he ever came out with. I think it's record-wise sold a bunch. It was a huge, huge hit album. And his albums were doing good already at this point. This is his third one, and he's already, the first one did really well, face value. Second one, I think, did, probably decent, not as good as the other two, but then he comes out with this third one, which is kind of like his masterpiece album, solo album. And what's so crazy is he's still making albums with Genesis. So and in fact, I think he makes some of his best albums with Genesis at this time, and he's making some great solo stuff. I mean, Phil Collins, to me, in my opinion, was probably the greatest artist of the 80s period. And I know everybody's gonna say, no, Michael Jackson was the biggest 80s, pop star, whatever, rock star, whatever you wanna call it. I disagree. Phil Collins, to me, was killing it in the 80s and into the 90s. I say 80s into the early 90s. Man, I'm just so impressed. I read his autobiography. If you're watching videos on my channel, I do book reviews on the channel, and I reviewed his book, Not Dead Yet, which is a really good biography by him. Anyways, I love Phil Collins. I'm a huge Phil Collins fan. Both solo work and then his later Genesis work is really, really good. But I was gonna say about that, yeah, I mean, he's making hit albums with solo work in the 80s, and he's making hit albums with Genesis, the band that he's with, and he's winning Grammys, he's getting nominated for Oscars. I mean, he's putting out #1 hits in both Genesis and in his solo work, putting out #1 after #1. I mean, just incredible work that he's doing here. But yeah, this also should be said, this album won Grammy Album of the Year, the only one that won Album of the Year for Phil Collins. So again, that's just a huge, huge album for him. The only one that won him that Grammy, plus, like I said, sold very well and all that. But yeah, getting to the album, I mean, you start with one of his bigger hits, I say, would be Sussudio, which is a nice upbeat. What I love about this album is it's got some really nice horns. He's really doing a good job of putting a really good horn section behind a lot of songs that drive a lot of his more rocking, I would say somewhat rocking, more upbeat songs. I love the horn section on a lot of these songs, like Sussudio, which is a very catchy song as well. I should say I would call this more like soft rock, kind kind of album. I love soft rock, and I've heard people, you know, that in the vinyl community are like, it seems to be there's some hatred for Phil Collins, like, oh, I don't like Phil Collins. And because there's some people that just don't like soft rock or adult contemporary type stuff. And I'm like, I don't get it. I love soft rock. Give me soft rock all the time. I can do some hard rock. Love soft rock though, but that's why you're gonna see a lot of that on my list if you haven't already. But yeah, see, One More Night, my favorite song on the album, is kind of the biggest hit here. What a beautiful song. One is more catchier. I said, oh, musically just so beautiful, the melody, and Phil Collins, you really feel the emotion behind his voice on the song, and with the kind of one more night, just give me one more night. Oh man, vocally amazing when he does that kind of stuff. I just can't take it, just give me one more. Oh man, amazing. It's kind of, and of course you can kind of tell from the lyrics, you know, talking about, you know, kind of love, you know, they're going through hard times, and he's saying, give me one more night, you know, to get it all back anyway. So yeah, just amazing song overall. One of my favorite Phil Collins songs, for sure. Take Me Home, it was a hit as well. I believe I heard that on the radio too. It's got another great kind of maybe somewhat ballad type song, with the take me home. Oh, that part is so good. Do I remember take me home? Oh, beautiful stuff there as well. But yeah, the whole album is just got some great stuff. Only you know, and I know, another great song here. Long Way to Go, another great one. I Don't Want to Know. Don't Lose My Number, really good upbeat kind of rocker song. Somewhat Inside Out, I think it's more of a ballad if I remember right. And then We Said Hello Goodbye, close the album, another great ballad. So yeah, again, I love Phil Collins for his ballads, his nice upbeat pop songs, soft rock. Nothing better than Phil Collins for me. So that's why no jacket required here at number 67 on my list. All right, 66. I actually have this album. A lot of these albums I haven't bought yet, so I have a lot more albums to get on my list. And this would be a surprise. You'd be like, what, this album? And it's a Kinks album, and that is Everybody's in Showbiz. Yeah, I actually found the vinyl at like Barnes & Noble's, and I had to get it. Came out in 1972, like I said. And this is the Kinks' 11th studio album. So this is the third album on this list that is number 11 in their discography, interesting enough. But yeah, I recently went through the Kinks discography with my friend my friend Nick from Townsend 505. 24 studio albums, so a lot of albums to go through. But it took us many months to get through that album. But that was a lot of fun because I didn't know much about the Kinks, so I really discovered a lot of cool new music. This is one, like I said, I have 3 Kinks albums on my list, and this is my 3rd favorite Kinks album. So you'll see 2 more on my list. And they're not the typical Kinks album, as you can see from this album. All 3 aren't your normal top Kinks albums. Like, I don't have the albums that everybody says is their best anyway. So I'm kind of weird in that sense. I got more of their deep cut albums. Like this one. I remember getting to this one and being totally, like, I had no expectations for it. And I just went through a couple of bad albums, I feel like, because they went through this really great classic period of like Village Green, Preservation Society, Arthur, and Lola, kind of their big, and you know, you also had Face to Face and Something Else. Their biggest albums, like they had a great 5-album run. And then you get like Percy, which I think was very good. Muscle Hillbillies, I hated. It was just a very boring country album, though a lot of people like that album. And then we get to this one, and I thought, oh, is this another bad? I just assumed it was going to be another bad Kinks album, because I thought all their good stuff was probably in the 60s. No, I was wrong. I actually love this more than all the other albums that I'd listened to up to this point. And yeah, it blew me away. I put this as the best album so far, like I said, until I heard 2 other albums. But again, so it might surprise people, because nobody will talk about this album. Everybody's in show business, or showbiz. Yeah, it's not an album that has any big hits on it, obviously. Not really well known. Man, I can't recommend it enough, though. I think it's, like I said, I can give it a 9.5 out of 10. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, this album blew me away. I wasn't expecting it to be this good. It is a double album, though the second disc is it's just a live album. They're just playing songs from their previous albums. In fact, they're playing a lot of stuff from Muscle Hillbillies, which I hate. Um, so they're not really even playing their big hits, really. I mean, Lola's on the second side. Uh, that's only really big song on the live part. So I will agree. I will admit that I'm not a big fan of the second disc, whatever, of the live stuff. It's like it's okay. It's not really that great. So you might thinking like, why are you putting this so high? Well, to me, it's so weird to make a double studio album where second side is or second disc is just live stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me. I kind of just forget that it's a double album. And I don't even listen to the second part. I just listen to the first. If you just listen to the first disc, it's a really good first disc. So I kind of just go, it's like added stuff I don't need, and I'll just concentrate on the first disc. So I'm cheating a little bit, but I'm like it's a double album, but I kind of treat it more like a single album in that sense anyways. But yeah, some great stuff here. What really surprised me is that it's got two really amazing like ballad type songs on here that are both in my top 10 favorite Kinks songs. In fact, my favorite song on this album, Celluloid Heroes, I think was my second favorite Kinks song of all time. So you have my second favorite Kinks song on this album. Celluloid Heroes, you probably never heard of it, is an amazing piano ballad where he talks about Celluloid, of course, talking about movies, and he's talking about movie stars of a long time ago, of like the 40s, 50s, 60s period, and he's talking about Grauman Theater where they have people's footprints. So that's what the song's about. He talks about walking across the boulevard and seeing all these celluloid heroes. Seeing all these movie stars that he is a big fan of. And it's got a great chorus that's very catchy. And lyrically, it's really fun. I mean, he's talking about different stars, and he said, here I'm walking across, this person. And he even mentions Marilyn Monroe in here, and he says, don't walk across Marilyn Monroe because she's very, she's very fragile or something like that. Or don't walk across, this person, they might hit you, And so it's very fun. There's kind of fun lyrics, but I love how he just, what do you call it? Name drops all these different movie stars through history, So I love that. Of course, being a big movie fan, I thought that was a really cool idea for a song. But it's really beautiful, great, like I said, chorus, really great, underrated song. So here, Celluloid Heroes. The other song I really love on this album is Sitting in My Hotel, which is another kind of song about kind of almost autobiographical of like, of course, the album's called Everybody in Showbiz. It's kind of about, being a famous, rock star, but then you're sitting alone in a hotel room and you're looking out the window and you're seeing life goes by. I mean, lyrically just amazing and everything, musically, vocally. But yeah, I just love that he goes, I'm sitting in my room, bum, 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 bum. And he says like, if, basically saying like, all my friends think I have this crazy, rock lifestyle. And he says, if my friends can see me now, just sitting in my hotel room, looking out the window, watching life go by. I love it. Because it's like, not everything's glamorous. He's kind of saying, like I have this glamorous rock lifestyle, but then I have these moments where I'm kind of lonely. Anyway, so it's a great song. Anyways, definitely one you need to check out. Sitting in My Hotel Room. Besides that, this is looking at it. It's kind of in the glam rock period. I almost want to say it's almost kind of a country rock style to it, but it's all I can say it's kind of that 70s glam rock style to it. That I really enjoy in here. But like the very first song, Here Comes a New Day, another really great Kinks song. I think it's very catchy. Here comes a new day, bum 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 bum. Yeah, great stuff there. Maximum Consumption, I kind of like. Hot Potatoes are all catchy stuff. You Don't Know My Name, really great song on here. And Supersonic Rocket, I would say, very catchy kind of rock songs on here. But yeah, overall, very underrated Kinks album. Everybody's in show business. Here at number 66 on my list. All right, number 65, we got the first album I've talked about by this band, Eagles. And this is On the Border, which came out in 1974. This is their third studio album, so it's a fairly early album. Though they didn't make that many albums. I think they only made like 7 studio albums. But I want to say this is after Desperado and before Hotel California. But so definitely was a very big period for them where they were just coming out with one great hit album after another and just had tons of hit songs. And I'm a big fan of the Eagles. I love their sound. I'll do a deep dive on them at some point because I've listened to all their albums and I've got my list together. I just need to do some research and, and put together my deep dive, but definitely ready to do them because I've always been a big fan of Eagles. A lot of it's because they're kind of considered country rock. You could also probably say they're soft rock as well. But I think they have a great, obviously just amazing vocals and great harmonies. Some of the best harmonies you're ever going to hear from the Eagles. I love their overall harmony work. I think it's what I love about the Eagles the most probably is their pop songs or ballads are just so, oh man, beautifully sung. But also, not only do they have, a couple of really great singers on, also the guitar playing is so good. I mean, I don't know if they have Joe Walsh at this point, but I do love the Joe Walsh, John Fielder. Again, I'm just talking about the Eagles in general. But the guitar playing, even on this album, though, I even say on this album, there's some good rock songs, too. I mean, they can have some upbeat rock songs, and they can have some great, more soft rock stuff with some great harmonies, and they can put together some amazing ballads. So I love that part of this album. They can do everything because the musicianship is just, again, one of the best musicianship bands of all time as far as like instrumentally, just some great stuff. Like I said, guitar playing is really, really good on this album overall. And yeah, vocally and everything, just amazing. It's got 2 big hits on it, 2 of my favorite songs by the Eagles on it. You close with my favorite song on the album, The Best of My Love, which is, again, probably top 10, top 5 Eagles song of all time. I love that song so much. It's got some of the best harmonies you'll ever hear. The, oh, sweet darling, I'll give the best of my love. Whoa, that part, when they do that, whoa, oh my gosh, it's the best harmonies ever. Like, I just melt when I hear those harmonies and go, oh my God. I just want to hear those harmonies all day. I love them so much. Yeah, so I love the harmonies on Best of My Love. It's just a beautiful ballad, love ballad, obviously, as you can tell from the title. One of the best love ballads of all time. Ends the album. My second favorite song opens the album, Already Gone, which is another like top 10 Eagles song, I'm already gone, and I'm feeling something. Another great, catchy hit with a lot of great vocal harmonies anyways, and obviously you've heard that probably on the radio quite a bit as well. Anyway, so yeah, those are top 2 probably favorite songs on there, 2 huge hits. Old 55 is really good as well. Man, another just great harmony song, and great chorus, and just, yeah, overall great vocal song. You also got You Never Cry Like a Lover is really good. My Man, On the Border, the title. Is It True? Another great ballad on here. So yeah, and like I said, there's actually some more upbeat stuff as well in here. But yeah, you're gonna see a couple of Eagles. This is I think you have 3 Eagles albums on here. So I believe this is my 3rd favorite Eagles album. And even the Eagles albums that didn't make the list, I really like as well. But yeah, can't get enough of Eagles. So Eagles here, On the Border, it's number 65 on my list. All right, getting to 64. Well, we're kind of going back to Phil Collins a little bit. This time we're going to talk about Genesis album, and that is We Can't Dance. Here at number 64 on my list. It came out in 1991. This is their 14th studio album. So this is actually 14 of 15 studio albums by the band. So this is definitely getting towards the end of the band Genesis. But again, Genesis got really good at the end. Like their 13th and 14th album, love those albums. They're both made in my top 100. I got 2 Genesis albums in my top 100. 2 amazing albums. Obviously, they're both sung by Phil Collins. I'm a big Phil Collins fan, so that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, he already is putting out some huge albums. Like No Jacket Required came out in 85. This comes out in 91. So, I mean, he's already got some of his biggest hit solo albums already at this point. And then he puts out, an album like this, which is like, wow, this is like my 2nd favorite Genesis album. And you got my, 3rd favorite, album I've talked about already by Phil Collins. And again, this is actually the last album that Phil Collins will sing with the band. He actually quits the band after this. I think he wanted to do more writing for the studio, maybe do more solo work maybe, but I know he loved to write for movies. He was a big movie guy too, And so I think he wanted to concentrate. Of course, he would eventually win an Oscar for writing for Tarzan. He also wrote for Brother Bear later on. So, and like I said, he got a lot of Oscar nominations for other movies, I believe. So, but yeah, I think he's getting burnt out because he was doing, he'd do a solo album, then he'd do a tour on that album, then he'd do a Genesis album, then he'd tour with Genesis on that album. So I think he was getting a little tired of just constant touring. He had 2 broken marriages, that were happening. So I think he was just getting overwhelmed with everything that was happening in his life. So he was like, after this album, he's like, okay, this is the end of Genesis. I have to close this chapter of my life and just concentrate on more solo work maybe and writing for movies. Genesis, of course, infamously, if I'm saying that word right, did one more album with another lead singer, and that album bombed, and then Genesis broke up. Genesis probably should have ended at this album. This would have been a great last album for them. Like I said, my second favorite Genesis album. I think it's great. And again, it's probably an underrated album. I doubt this is very high in many Genesis fans. Again, I'm not a big fan of the earlier work with Peter Gabriel because it's more prog rock. I like the more soft rock albums that later on, and more poppy or type albums. But yeah, saying that, We Can't Dance. The only song that was kind of a hit, I think, is the title song, or kind of it's called I Can't Dance, I believe. But I think that was maybe a mild hit radio-wise. It's a decent song. It's, another solid song on here. But just a lot of great deep cuts, actually. Again, there's some upbeat rock songs on here, some great ballads. Phil Collins does so good on that kind of stuff. But I love even the first 2 songs are really, really good. Like, they almost made my top 10 Phil Collins songs. They, like, kind of barely missed out in my top 10. But No Son of Mine, great opening song. Again, just sung very passionately by Phil Collins when he goes you're no son of mine. Oh my gosh, so catchy. Then Jesus, He Knows Me is a really great song. It seems to be, it's a very upbeat, catchy song. It's kind of making fun of televangelists, so I'm kind of like, I don't know. I kind of get why you make fun of them, but, be careful about talking about people that are, that preach Jesus. But anyways, but still, it's a really super catchy song. Definitely wanted to listen to. Let's see. Tell Me Why is my favorite song on this album, which you might say there's also a Beatles song called Tell Me Why, but this is different. But it's a really great, another very kind of emotional style song where he's kind of yelling at the heavens to God, like, why is there so much, horrible stuff going on in the world? Can you tell me why, So I think it's kind of cool in that sense. Like, a lot of people do that. We, look at God in heaven, like, why is the world this way? And of course I say, well, it's because of sinful nature, that's just the way it goes. But yeah, really great song though. It's my favorite on the album, top 10 Phil Collins song. But you got some good stuff like Dreaming While You Sleep, a great ballad on here. Never a Time, Living Forever, Hold On My Heart, Way of the World, Since I Lost You. I mean, so many songs I really loved on this album. So We Can't Dance here, number 64. But we're not done with Phil Collins yet. No. Let's talk about him again at number 63. And this is his debut album, Face Value, which I have the CD here. Yeah, it's first time going solo from the band Genesis, trying to see what he can do on his own. And this came out in 1981. And we find out that he's a really good solo artist as well as being great with Genesis. Yeah, this is a huge hit album for him. Really, after he did this album, it was like, okay. He obviously was like, I can do more solo albums and eventually does No Jack Required, which wins Grammy for Album of the Year. But this is definitely one of his more famous, well-known albums, probably up there for most people. This is my second favorite Phil Collins album. Again, it's hard. I have this slightly above No Jack Required. They're both so good. They're almost like neck and neck good. Like, it's hard to pick. I'm picking this slightly above it. And I think that's because this album, one of the things is his first marriage was breaking apart. He's going through a divorce. And he wrote this album during that time. So you really feel the Phil Collins, wow, Phil both times. But you feel him in the emotions. I mean, it's a very emotional album, obviously, because he comes from a very emotional part of his life. And you really feel it in the album. I think that's why I like it a little bit more, because it's definitely, I remember I had there was a girl that I really liked this like 15 years ago. And I thought she liked me maybe, and so I was like, oh, I'll ask her out and see if she'll go out with me. Turns out she had like a boyfriend, which she just, for some reason, failed to ever mention to me that she had a boyfriend. until I asked her out, and then also, oh, you got a boyfriend? Okay, convenient. Anyways, but I told her, like, I remember I was like trying to play it off cool, and I was like, oh, that's okay, you know. And I said, that's all right. I'll just go home and listen to Phil Collins and cry. And I was kind of joking about it, but obviously, you know, some truth behind there. And I feel like face value is what I was talking about. Like, this is an album to listen to when you got your heart broken and you want to cry. This is a good album for that, because it's definitely from very sad songs about, you know, having your heart broken on here. Obviously, the big hit here, In the Air Tonight, my favorite song on the album, one of my favorite Phil Collins songs of all time. It's an amazing song, In the Air Tonight. And we all know that song. It's played, probably the most played song of his, but it's amazing. The way he starts with just almost a cappella for most of the part of the song, and then all of a sudden you get the greatest drum fills of all time. The bum 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 bum. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord. Oh, amazing vocal work. Just amazing. Just the way it's arranged is just so unique. It's why it's a huge radio hit. But yeah, that's a really cool song. I'm not sure if any of these other songs are really big hits. I feel like Behind the Lines might have been a hit song. It sounds familiar. It's a really good song. Like, I can hear that. I feel like that could have been on the radio. I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, Behind the Lines, great stuff. This Must Be Love. The Roof is Leaking, another just very emotionally sounding song. Nice piano in there. It's definitely got a melancholy type sound to it. That's great. And he, like I said, I'm sure The Roof is Leaking is like a metaphor for, you know, what's going on with his marriage. But yeah, Hand in Hand, I Missed Again, really great. You Know What I Mean, really catchy. Another song that could have been a hit song. It feels like it's so catchy. And yeah, some great stuff there. Thunder and Lightning's a nice upbeat song for him. I'm Not Moving. And then If Leaving Me Is Easy, obviously another song about, you know, breakup. That's really, really heartbreaking. Yeah, so yeah, if you want to sit and cry, I say listen to this album, face value. Here at number 63 on my list. All right, number 62, I have this album as well. I think this is the first Paul McCartney album on my list, and that is Ram, which came out in '71. It's officially a Paul and Linda McCartney album. The only album that's a Paul and Linda McCartney, so, but kind of considered part was obviously solo work. It's the second album, actually, after he broke up the Beatles. His first album, just called McCartney. Definitely very raw album. I like it, but didn't love it enough to get on my list because it just had a lot of filler on it. But then it's like he bounced back because he was kind of depressed when he made that album. But then he kind of bounced back and made like a feels like more complete album. And this is Ram. Where I feel like, okay, this is what we're going to expect out of Paul McCartney's solo career, which is really, really good music, as you can. I mean, who thought Paul McCartney couldn't write great music? I mean, after the Beatles, obviously. This is actually an album that I was never a big fan of until recently. And I don't know why. I remember I've heard this album a couple times and thought, oh, this is a very overrated, like, Paul McCartney album. I wasn't really getting into it that much, except for a couple hits, a couple really good songs on here. Then recently, when I went through his whole discography, I've gone through his whole discography really recently, and I bought a number of his albums. And I kind of came around going, wow, I really like this album. It's one of my favorite Paul McCartney albums. In fact, I think I have 6 Paul McCartney albums on my list, and this is number 6. So just say, I love Paul McCartney, obviously. He's my favorite solo artist of all time. Very well represented on this list, obviously, with the Beatles and with the solo career. Probably the most represented artist on my list, because it's solo and Beatles a combination, I would say. But yeah, really nice stuff. You got, I think, a #1 hit. My favorite song on the album is Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, which I believe was the #1 hit for him. Probably the most well-known song that was played on the radio quite a bit, and definitely the song I knew the most coming into it. But love it. Just love the whole beginning. I'm so sorry, Uncle Albert. I love that part. And then it's cool how it goes into the hands across the water. It's like 2 songs in one. It's a very fun song, very catchy. Love the song. But the opener, Too Many People, great kind of upbeat rock song, which is, people seem to be a diss to John Lennon, which John Lennon made a diss song about Paul. But it's a really catchy song. Definitely one of the best songs, most well-known songs on the album. Ram On, it's a short song, but really nice. Dear Boy is great. I really like Hardly Country. Is a song I really have been growing on me. Oh, in the heart of the country. It's a very soft song, really good. Eat at Home, Long Haired Lady, and then the closer, Backseat of My Car. What a great song. Really, really great deep cut. I just love the overall idea of like he's taking a girl. It's kind of this almost nostalgia for being younger when you're first falling in love and you're going out with your girl. And the father says, you know, don't be long. And I love that part of it where the father comes out and he kind of lowers his voice to kind of represent the father going, and the father says or something like that, you know, don't be long. And, you know, because when you're young and you're taking a girl out, the father's very protective and he's like, bring her back by 8, you know, that kind of thing. And of course, he's talking about we're in the backseat of my car, which, what do you do in the backseat of my car? Probably like making out and stuff like that, which was so fun when you're young and you're just discovering girls for the first time. So anyway, so I just love the overall idea of the song. And it gets really catchy at the end. It gets kind of a little upbeat and it's very fun at the end. But yeah, a great song, Backseat of My Car. To close, a really good album here. Ram at number 62 on my list. And then we're going to close out at number 61 with the only album that's in the 60s here, which I have a lot of 60s albums on my list, but not this time around. But this is Inside Out by The Association, which came out in 1967. And this is their third album. And if you might, The Association is not as big of a band as some of the people I talked about on this list, but very underrated band. I love Association. I think they're a really great 60s band. They had 4 like major hits, 2 of them on this album. Me and Nick just went through the whole discography on his channel and did like a top 10 and ranked all his albums. And so this is more of a recent thing where I just recently went through the Association. And so I really kind of fall in love with a lot of the albums that they made. I have 2 of their albums on my list, actually. This is my second favorite album. It's probably this and their debut album, which did make my list. Along Comes Association, probably their biggest album. It didn't quite make my list, so very good album. Those are the 2 biggest ones because they had their biggest hits on it. This has 2 big hits on it, of course. Windy was a #1 hit for them, which you probably heard on the radio if you listen to Oldie Station. Everyone knows it's windy. Bum, 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 bum. And windiest. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, but really great, catchy pop song. Association, they're kind of in the folk rock era, I call it. But they're really more sunshine pop and ballad types. I mean, they have very, you know, sunshine, very poppy stuff. And then some very nice ballads. And the best thing about Association, the harmonies. Again, I love harmonies. This album has so many great harmonies on it and great melodies and just really great pop and ballads. Anyways, I love that stuff, so that's why it speaks to me. Some people don't like that and they don't like this. They probably wouldn't like the Association, but I love this type of music, especially 60s. 60s, like folk rock era. Love it. The other song, my favorite song of the album, my favorite Association song, one of my favorite songs of all time, that is Never My Love. I love that song. Again, one of the best love ballads of all time. And some of the greatest harmonies you'll ever hear. And again, a huge hit for them as well. Top 5 like song, I believe, for them. But I just love that guitar. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, it's so beautiful. Just the guitar tone and everything. And then, never my love, never my love, never my love. Oh, when they get to that chorus and you hear all their voices together, there's like 6 members and they harmonize incredibly well. What I love about the band itself is that they have like 4 like legitimate, like really good songwriters and singers. So they all share. So it's like they might lead sing on 2 songs because everybody else is lead singing on 2 songs. So it's a really cool, diverse group of like, you know, not that they like sound too different, but that you have that many people that can write songs and sing is amazing and can harmonize so well with each other. It's just, this is like them at peak power, Association, where like, man, this is, if you want to hear that, you want to check the Association, definitely check this album out. Like, I don't think you can be disappointed. This is definitely one of their big hit albums, like I said, for them. Never My Love is one of the biggest songs they ever had, along with Windy. But yeah, and I just love like when they, you know, like they go into that for me, and they just, just feel, you just hear it, just like you're surrounded by harmonies. It's just so good. Anyways, but yeah, Never My Love. I can talk forever about that song. So good, but some great stuff like On a Quiet Night is made my top 10 association songs as well. It's just nice, really nice kind of pop song ballad. But I just love the chorus of silently, silently, so silently, like that part. Oh, so beautiful. Love it. We Love Us, another just absolutely amazing song. When Love Comes to Me is really great. Happiness is a very upbeat song, just a very upbeat poppy song that it's like, again, like it's called Happiness Is. And man, it makes you smile. You're like, man, I'm happy when I hear the song. It's so good. Sometime, another great pop ballad. And then it closes with Requiem for the Masses, which is a really most ambitious song they ever did, where it has definitely some different key changes or some different tempos. It definitely changes throughout the songs. It's definitely their most experimental, ambitious song on the album, but really cool. It's kind of it's supposed to be kind of a Vietnam like protest style song. So there's a little bit of a marching drum to it, which I like. But I do like it for how kind of ambitious it was for them while still being kind of catchy. So another great closer for them anyway. So yeah, Inside Out at number 61 on my list. And that will, I know these videos are almost going an hour. It's hard to do 10 albums at a time because there's so much to talk about, especially these albums I love. But yeah, so that's another 10 albums for me, 70 through 61. Yeah, please comment. What do you think about these albums? What's your favorite on this list? Love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, thank you to all my friends. Hopefully you're watching this and commenting and following along on my journey here. Anyways, besides that, thank you to everybody watching this video. Thank you for liking it. Thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all and I hope you have a good week.